my goodness, that was off to a bad start. Hello. How are you? Hello. Hello, everybody. Anna, No Name, Queen. Who else is here? Okay. Salah, we've got enough people to get going. Let me just clean up my eyeliner because it's smeared. And yeah, I know my hair is a hot mess. I just dried it and some of it is still wet. All right, so we have a full plate today, yet again. And I wanted to start with a visual. Let me bring this up. And I wanted to get some text. Okay, here it is. I want to show you something. Hello, my darling. Hi, Clark. How are you? And yeah, by all means, please do subscribe, hit the like, all of that stuff. Please do share. All right, here we go. All right, so here, I want to show you this picture. And I want to read you the part of the text of what it is that Trump signed. In recent years, many educational institutions and athletic associations have allowed men to compete in women's sports. This is demeaning, unfair, and dangerous to women and girls, and denies women and girls the equal opportunity to participate and excel in competitive sports. Moreover, under Title IX of the Education Amendments Act of 1972, educational institutions receiving federal funds cannot deny women an equal opportunity to participate in sports. As some federal courts have recognized, ignoring fundamental biological truths between the two sexes deprives women and girls of meaningful access to educational facilities, and then a number of cases are cited. Therefore, it is the policy of the United States to rescind all funds from educational programs that deprive women and girls of fair athletic opportunities, which results in the endangerment, humiliation, and silencing. Oh, look at this. I think that you missed the point, Notorious P.I.G. I'm sorry that your dear leader dropped dead from a drug overdose. Maybe you can find another community that will welcome you. All right. That deprive women and girls of fair athletic opportunities, which results in the endangerment. Okay, below. It shall also be, and silencing of women and girls and deprives them of privacy. It shall also be the policy of the United States to oppose male competitive participation in women's sports more broadly as a matter of safety, fairness, dignity, and truth. And Donald Trump signed that. Donald Trump, who packed the Supreme Court with justices that destroyed Roe v. Wade. Donald Trump, whose Supreme Court everyone thought was going to get the Democrats sliding into the White House. They failed to understand that a decision in 2022 will not necessarily impact a vote in 2024. That's politics. There were a lot of very naive people and a lot of big mouth yappers running around social media, and a lot of idiots running the Democratic National Committee and Kamala Harris's campaign. That this man has emerged as the greatest ally to women and girls in years. Let's just say that the irony does not escape me, okay? The irony doesn't escape me. And I think that a lot of things led to this moment. First of all, common sense. That is a very clearly written executive order. And I didn't read the whole thing, I just read the beginning because that's the most relevant part. This picture of Donald Trump surrounded by a bunch of girls and women is the kind of optics that you cannot buy for $1 million, $2 million. It is priceless. And I wanted to read you what J.K. Rowling tweeted out. And also Julie had something to say about it. Okay. Let's see. J.K. Rowling wrote the following: "Congratulations to every single person on the left who's been campaigning to destroy women's and girls' rights. Without you, there'd be no images like this." Spot on. But she also wrote something else. She wrote, This why do you care about a tiny fraction of the population line is and always was utterly ridiculous. Gender ideology has undermined freedom of speech, scientific truth, gay rights, and women's and girls' safety, privacy, and dignity. It's also caused irreparable physical damage to vulnerable kids. Nobody voted for it. The vast majority of people disagree with it. Yet it has been imposed top-down by politicians, healthcare bodies, academia, sections of the media, celebrities, and even the police. Its activists have threatened and enacted violence on those who dared oppose it. People have been defamed and discriminated against for questioning it. Jobs have been lost and lives have been ruined, all for the crime of knowing that sex is real and matters. You know what, Milo's mom? I've had enough of you. Every time you come in here, you have nothing to offer with any intelligence behind it. You're just here to spout propaganda and be an idiot. So I think that there are plenty of other communities that would welcome you with open arms. This will not be one of them. All right. When the smoke clears, it will be all too evident that this was never about a so-called vulnerable minority, notwithstanding the fact that some very vulnerable people have been harmed. The power dynamics underpinning our society have been reinforced, not dismantled. The loudest voices throughout this entire fiasco have been people insulated from consequences by their wealth and/or status. They aren't likely to find themselves locked in a prison cell with a 6'4" rapist who's decided his name is now Dolores. They don't need state-funded rape crisis centers, nor do they ever frequent high street changing rooms. They simper from talk show sofas about those nasty far-right bigots who don't want penises swinging around the girls' showers, secure in the knowledge that their private pool remains the safe place it always was. Those who've benefited most from gender identity ideology are men, both trans-identified or not. Some have been rewarded for having a cross-dressing kink by access to all spaces previously reserved for women. Others have parlayed their delicious new victim status into an excuse to threaten, assault, and harass women. Non-trans identified lefty bros have found a magnificent platform from which to display their own impeccably progressive credentials. By jeering and sneering at the needs of women and girls, all while patting themselves on the back for giving away rights that aren't theirs. The actual victims in this mess have been women and children, especially the most vulnerable, gay people who've resisted the movement and paid a horrible price, and regular people working in environments where one misplaced pronoun could see you vilified or constructively dismissed. Do not tell me this is about a tiny minority. This movement has impacted society in disastrous ways, and if you had any sense, you'd be quietly deleting every trace of activist mantras, ad hominem attacks, false equivalence, and circular arguments from your X feeds because the day is fast approaching when you'll want to pretend you always saw through the craziness and never believed it for a second. Well said, J.K. Rowling. That's why the woman made a fortune as a writer. And then Julie Bindel was a lot more brief and a lot more straightforward. And she says, well, when it comes down to it, he's just banning men. I detest the fella, but you know who you've got to blame for this? Yourselves. Demanding rights above and beyond those of women and girls, imposing yourself in our spaces, fuck off. That's my Julie. So, burn this image into your memory. I told Negs yesterday that my prediction about the Dems, I had sort of been floating around this idea that if Trump overstepped his bounds, that it was possible that at least one chamber of Congress might be up for grabs in 2026. The Democrats are going to be in the wilderness for years, perhaps decades, if that DNC mess that we saw the other day is anything to go by. It's a party in the wilderness. This is overwhelmingly popular. What you are seeing in this picture is overwhelmingly popular. People did vote for this. And everybody who went on Piers Morgan or on Twitter or on YouTube to cope, people like Brian Taylor Cohen and David Pakman and people like that who were like, it's not a big issue. It was a big fucking issue. It was a big fucking issue. It was. And I know that people like John Oliver don't have daughters. And I know that the people who were in favor or who clapped like seals when an intact, or not intact, but when a male beat up a woman at the Olympics and got a gold medal for it, which was really like the last straw for a lot of us. An act that would have gotten that same individual arrested if he had done it on the street and outside of a boxing ring. A man assaulting a woman and beating her senseless. And he wasn't the only one. There was that other one too. But now, there is a sense that common sense has prevailed. I don't give a shit how imperfect the vessel is at this point. I don't care if it's Trump. I don't care who it is. Anyone who can get shit done in this matter is okay, as long as shit gets done. Again, it doesn't mean I'm going to support him. I'll never vote for him. And it means that if he does something stupid, I will call it out. But in this case, it is shameful that the left got so up its own ass that it allowed Trump to take a victory lap like that. But the left abandoned women and girls a long time ago. And the biggest culprits were the feminists, the women's groups, who decided to become men's rights activists, defend the rights of men over women, and now Trump gets a huge W. And I have no problem saying, thank God, it's about fucking time. Not his W, but the fact that it was done. So, enough is enough. Enough is fucking enough. Enough with self-ID. Enough with men and women's prisons. And, you know, the state prisons are going to have to pull themselves together at some point. Enough is enough with intact males literally swinging their dicks around in women's changing rooms. Enough is enough with being gaslighted and being forced to say that we see something that we don't, or that reality is something other than what it is. I applaud it. I was so relieved to see that visual yesterday. I was so relieved to see that at last somebody was going to stand up and say, the fucking emperor is naked. Somebody get that guy a shirt and a pair of pants. You know? All right. Yeah. That's how I feel. All right. Correct. I'm sorry, I can't relate. I can't relate. I've been hearing this a lot. I've been seeing this and hearing it said by people in the UK, by people in Australia, who are saying maybe this gives us hope. Although I see the UK is getting worse, Rosie. No name. Thank you so much for the memberships. As always, you are so very generous. Thank you. Let's move on to the tittle tattle. I wanted to let you guys know. Okay, truly Canadian. There you go. Okay. There you go. I think that there are quite a few of you up in the Great White North, I suspect. Even with the tariff bullshit, which I guess is dead in the water now. All right. Again, thank you, No Name. I'll go back later and watch the replay and see who got a membership. Enjoy your memberships, but thank you. All right. Now, I noticed when I went into YouTube Studio, I noticed something funny. Every time that I put Carla Sofia Gascon in a thumbnail, I get half the number of views that I get for my other streams. People don't even want to hate watch a stream where that individual is featured. So from now on, if I want to talk about Emilia Perez or about Carla Sofia Gascon, I'm going to have to slip it in without putting that individual in the thumbnail, because the thumbnail is a real turnoff, apparently. Literally half the number of views that I get on other streams. I can't even bring in hate watchers when I put Carla Sofia Gascon in a thumbnail. So let's go ahead and start. First of all, Blake Lively has another lawsuit on her hands. Yeah, you heard that right. All right, this is from TMZ. PR company accuses her of defamation. Chip Babcock, a partner in the Texas law firm Jackson Walker LLP that represents Jed Wallace, tells TMZ Blake Lively made false statements to the press through a private administrative filing claiming Mr. Wallace and Street Relations had sexually harassed her, retaliated against her, aided and abetted others who did the same, breached a contract with her, and engaged in other improper conduct. Mr. Wallace, who is a very private person, has never met or spoken to Ms. Lively ever. He has not engaged in a smear campaign against her at any point in time. The decision to file this lawsuit to rightfully protect himself and his family was made after Ms. Lively not only filed against him first in Texas, but indicated she intended to name him in yet another lawsuit. And apparently, the crisis management firm, the PR firm run by this Jed Wallace guy, is accusing Blake of falsely lumping his firm into the allegation she made against Jason Baldoni, or Baldoni, I should say. The media reported that he had engaged in illegal activity. And apparently, he says, as a result of Blake's defamatory statements, Wallace says he has suffered millions of dollars in reputational harm with a projected loss to his company that exceeds another $1 million. Oopsie fucking doopsie. Oopsie doopsie. Yes, Queen Reindeer, I saw this. It's a little late, isn't it? But yeah, I saw that. How dare you ruin my shitty movie? Yeah, it did. Okay. Now, Apparently, the latest twist in this Blake Lively thing that is absolutely adorable is that yes, Negs, I'll do that as soon as the stream is over. All right. Um, the lawyer for Justin Baldoni is saying that he wants to depose Taylor Swift, and apparently everybody's panties are in a bunch over it. But it appears that there are other A-listers who are now very frightened because apparently this Brian Friedland guy is not playing games. So let's hear what Andy had to say, our go-to guy on all things Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds, because again, it's just getting worse. Let's give this a listen.
Lively's team is sweating bullets because the thought of Taylor Swift getting deposed is likely going to prompt them to want to settle immediately. From what I'm hearing, it's not just Taylor Swift. There are multiple A-listers that if things get deposed, the truth about Ryan and Blake is going to come out.
Uh-oh.
Welcome to Popcorn Planet. I am Andy Signor. It's interesting. TMZ put this out there because I've been working on some stories, talking to sources. We were working on a documentary, so we've been calling everybody. We've reached out to everybody. We're trying to get as much as we can. And yeah, what I've heard is that exactly what now TMZ's put out there, seemingly alleging, even though Brian Friedman didn't actually say it himself, Harvey Levin and Garagos seemingly jump in there to make the thinly veiled threat clear. While Brian says he doesn't want to do it, we'll play the clip in a second. The idea of deposing Taylor Swift is the last thing Blake Lively wants to have to do because that's going to open up a whole Pandora's box.
I wonder what Pandora's box that would be. I wonder what Taylor Swift knows. I'm dying of curiosity. I can't wait. And the fact that they're all running around like chickens with their heads cut off is fucking hilarious, as Blake Lively sits around boo-hooing about how stressed out she is over a lawsuit that nobody forced her to file. Okay.
But what TMZ is not reporting, and what I'm hearing, allegedly, let me cover myself, allegedly, it's not just Taylor Swift, guys. There are other A-listers that have said things that if texts and emails and everything comes out, things that have been said will be extremely damning and not something that those A-listers or Ryan and Blake are going to want to hear.
Oh,
That's
well.
what I'm hearing. Now, I don't know what or where or by who yet. We are still working on it. If you are one of those insiders out there and you want to tip me off and tell me so I can get these things confirmed, I'd like to know from multiple people before I say something like that, definitively. Please hit us up. You can hit us up at popcornplanet@gmail.com or social media. Where did my sign go? Anyway, at Andy Signor. You guys know where I am. Anyway, I want to go through what TMZ is reporting because now that they've put it out there, I can confirm I've heard this too. Okay, and let's watch what Harvey Levin's saying because it's a big deal.
I'm just going to put it out there. This case is never going to trial. This case will never see a courtroom.
Now, Harvey Levin is a lawyer. Mark Garagos, big time lawyer. I hear this too. I also hear Brian Friedman's not really a trial lawyer. He likes to settle. So I don't think either of them are wrong here.
This case was never filed to be tried. It was filed for PR on both sides.
Absolutely.
I think clearly this is totally generated by PR reasons on both sides. And I will tell you why. The first thing was they did not file a lawsuit. People have to understand that. This was a claim. This was the precondition to filing a lawsuit. This was a way to take that, file that, use that to get the interest of the New York Times, to kind of the catnip for them to take the bait.
You are going to depose Blake Lively, Ryan Reynolds, Taylor Swift. Who else?
Well, I don't know that we're going to depose Taylor Swift or not.
Really?
I think that's going to be, probably a game time decision. I don't know that decision's been made, but I can tell you this: there's anyone that reasonably has information that can be, that can provide evidence in this case is going to be deposed. I mean,
That's
for
Taylor
sure.
Swift. She was there for that meeting.
She was there for that meeting.
Okay, well, I'm a lawyer. I know what that means.
Look at the smiles on these two. Even Mark, who apparently is friends with Brian. I'm sure Harvey's had many off the record talks with Brian.
And it's funny because yesterday I was watching a couple of videos where attorneys, not in LawTube, okay, none of the people affiliated or associated with Ricada or any of that circle, but new people that I thought were really good, were saying the same thing, that they have never in their careers seen a case where a plaintiff was refusing to be deposed by the defendant's lawyer, and the plaintiff saying that they had the right to pick which lawyer was going to depose them. They said that it is unprecedented and it is a shockingly arrogant move on Blake Lively's part. And the sort of agreement was that this was a motion or an attempt made by her lawyers after she basically twisted their thumbs, on the rack or something, and forced them to file a horse's ass motion that was never going to fly in court. Blake Lively cannot, and Ryan Reynolds cannot snap their fingers. They're not Sony executives they're dealing with. Okay. They're not a bunch of hapless personal assistants or PR people. You don't have the right to say that you refuse to be deposed by opposing counsel. It was ridiculous. And her lawyers knew it was ridiculous when they filed it. But, they were basically doing it just to get her off their backs, knowing that it would never fly.
And that's why I'm just thinking that even when you take Blake and Ryan out of it in terms of how they personally feel about it all. I mean,
see you later, Martinez.
Say that we're going to put Taylor Swift in the middle of this whole thing. I think they are going to do everything they can to avoid.
I just wanted to show this, tell you. I have 2 words for Ryan Reynolds. Ben Affleck. After that disastrous documentary that J-Lo made, and the fact that she was parading him around and invading his privacy and dealing with her bullshit, have you seen how Ben Affleck looks now? Have you seen him? He looks very relaxed, doesn't he? Looks like a new man. I mean, anybody could have predicted that Ben Affleck getting back into a relationship with J-Lo, not even bringing up the fact that he married her like an idiot. But eventually Ryan Reynolds is going to have to make a choice, because this has to come to an end. Somebody has got to pull the plug on this lawsuit. This lawsuit is leading nowhere good. Ryan Reynolds' image is already taking a massive hit, and it's because of her. She did this to him. Because of ego, because of arrogance, because of entitlement. And he's beginning to realize, holy shit, the Daily Mail is running hit pieces on me. A bunch of other media organizations are saying that, that I'm not the nice guy, that I've paid millions of dollars to create this image, that everybody has been running with for years. What the fuck am I going to do? So I'm not saying that he should divorce her, but what I am saying is he needs to get her under control and stop with this fucking lawsuit and pull out of this goddamn lawsuit.
Avoid going to court, because the last thing they want is to have their friend, the biggest star in the world now, sitting on a stand being grilled by Brian Friedman.
And not that, hence why Blake doesn't want Brian to do it. Also, it's not just Taylor Swift.
Right.
It's not just Taylor Swift. Ryan and Blake have a lot of celebrity friends that got involved in this project. A lot of A-listers got involved in this project, it seems.
My assumption is that they're going to probably take some legal actions that are beyond the bounds of decency, and we'll see if they.
You are absolutely right. The countersuit goes nowhere, nor should it. Justin Baldoni needs to put pedal to the metal and continue until there's a settlement and it's over. But yeah, if Blake decides that she's going to get up from her fainting couch, unclutch the pearls and say, you know what, I'm done. It doesn't mean he will, that he'll withdraw his lawsuit. Give me a break. All right, let's go.
They can try to avoid a deposition.
How could they do that if there's relevance?
I'm going to object and order the witness not to testify.
You're not his lawyer. You're his friend. Jeez.
Mark is usually my lawyer, though.
I'm working here, guys.
Very telling. That clip is very telling because, yeah, Mark's giggling the whole time because he knows. Now, was this tipped off? Like, did TMZ and Mark go into this knowing, like, yeah, let's try to give a? I don't know. This is all the way it works. Now, Brian didn't do it. Technically, Mark's client privilege, so they're not going to be able to subpoena him. And Harvey is, going to claim journalist. I'm not revealing sources or whatever. They're going to be able to play that as a journalist. So if Brian is able to sort of play this game, he's doing it very smartly. He's no dummy. This guy's good. He's very good. And from everything I've gathered in my research and people I've spoken to that know Mr. Friedman, they say he's very good, but he settles. Like he wants to just turn the screw and figure out the best way to get that settlement. He does not go to trial. Now, doesn't mean they wouldn't go to trial, but likely then someone else in the team would focus on that trial in itself. Brian's there to really make the big splash because that's what he's good at. And he's anchored a lot of people over his years and the cases and things that he's done and settlements he's gotten. These three dudes all know how to play that game. Let's keep it real. These are not three dudes you want to upset and go against. They're expensive. They're sneaky. But also, I imagine they're playing above board. I do. I don't think they're doing anything that's going to get them in trouble. They would risk their entire careers. Harvey, TMZ, I don't know. I don't love TMZ, but, I think these lawyers are trying to do the best they can, but this is very interesting because this whole idea of, settle my way or I will grill Taylor Swift. It's a legitimate fair threat, and it's not just Taylor Swift. And I think Blake and Ryan must know this, and they can play all they want on their socials, play up like all is good. Oh, we're fine. Everything's been good. But the reality is there are people involved in this production that I don't believe have been named yet. I don't believe have been named yet. And I'm not naming them until I can confirm from multiple, even more than I've already done. I don't think these people are going to want it to come out. I don't. And I think Blake and Ryan know that. And I think as this is getting so out of hand, this is legit. And this might be a nice spotlight that Brian's putting out there to remind Team Blake, is this really what you want to do? You started this fight. You think you really? Okay, let's go through all the texts. Let's really see what all you guys are saying about each other and about Justin and what it really happened. Because again, not that they're trying to cover up something bad Justin did. I still don't understand what Justin did.
Nothing.
That was so bad that warranted all this.
Nothing.
Because he said she was sexy? Like, really? Because there was like a moment where she was breastfeeding and the guy looked her in the eyes? Like, really, Blake? And then of course it changed as the time went on, and then she just totally steamrolled the movie because Blake and Ryan realized, oh crap, this actually is going to be good. And when they realized that, and people they trusted told them that, that's when she really pulled the screw and took over the movie at any cost necessary, because she knew this is the perfect movie that I need to control. Be a control freak too. Now Ryan's going to get involved, even though he had no business to get involved at all.
Not at all.
Taylor Swift's now involved, even though she had no reason to get involved. And others all got involved and took over a Wayfarer studio production. And then tried to torch the guy, seemingly to justify why they did it.
Yep.
But in all the correspondence we've seen in the timeline, none of it is saying, like, if there were texts from Blake's team, like, Justin shouldn't be anywhere near this movie because of XYZ, there's nothing. Now, if Blake has those, Justin's toast, but we've yet to see them, and I don't know if she's holding on to them. I doubt it. It does really feel like she put everything she had out there. It does seem that way. But if Team Blake has that stuff, and they were the first ones to quote sources to TMZ after the judge made that order to stop talking. So clearly Team Blake is still playing the game, and so is Brian Friedman. This game is still game on. They are not shutting up. They're not slowing down. There are big plays happening, and I think to come, so stay tuned. Hit that subscribe if you haven't already, because these are big moves.
Okay, so there's that. And, I'm seeing, oh, you're welcome, Debbie. I see what you say, Emily. I watched the movie on a flight. It's like a little bit better than Chick Lit. 5.5. Okay. Yeah, I haven't seen it. I don't want to. This whole business has kind of sickened me. And I really have no interest in seeing it. I'm just not, I never was interested in seeing it, but even less so now. So, and it's funny. I mean, all this fuss over a movie that, I mean, it did well at the box office. It did very well. It was a hit, a box office success, but I don't give a shit about the movie. I never read the book. I'm not a Blake Lively fan. I don't see any reason to watch it, but all this fuss over a movie that made what, like $350 million? Come on now. No. All right. Moving on to Harry and Meghan. I don't know if you guys saw this, but you know, the Heritage Foundation has been pushing very, very hard to open up Harry's immigration records because they want to know if Harry was honest on his application, his visa application, and whether or not he told USCIS that he had used drugs the way he admitted to in his autobio spare and in various and sundry interviews, which was incredibly, unbelievably stupid. Well, guess what? Now, I told you guys weeks ago, if you think that Donald Trump isn't petty enough to stick his nose into this matter, you're very, very wrong. And now the case has come before the judge again, and now we will see what's going to happen because Homeland Security is not being run by the same. There's a new sheriff in town. Let's put it that way. And Donald Trump is still very angry because he was a huge fan of Queen Elizabeth and he doesn't like the way Harry treated the Queen. And so, you know, he's got this whole grudge going on. And if there's one thing that we know about that petty motherfucker, he knows how to multitask when he sets his mind to something. Now, one of the things that's happened is that the bloom has gone off the Harry and Meghan rose in the United States. And the warm welcome that they got when they first came here, because, you know, we Americans, you know, we tend to be very sort of googly-eyed when it comes to the royals, and Harry was so cute, and he was a very, very popular royal. And the marriage was very romantic, and it was so unlike any other royal wedding. And, you know, Meghan is American, even though she's a D-list nobody actress. But over time, the Sussexes have really gotten on the nerves of a lot of people. And among the people whose nerves they've gotten on have been members of the American press. So this content creator is terrific. Kinsey Schofield Unfiltered. Her channel is linked in the description box. She is a fantastic royal watcher, royal journalist, and royal commentator. And so I thought we might give this a listen because I thought that her take was really good. Let me just speed her up a little bit. All right, let's give her a listen.
It's not the first, and they certainly won't be the last magazine to humble Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. Here's a list at some of the most savage digs at the Duke and Duchess of Sussex from American media. All right, I've seen some of your feedback when Maureen Callahan and I spoke last week about how Harry and Meghan's Hollywood dream is basically dead.
Yeah.
Plenty of you disagreed with us. I saw some people saying Meghan is a great producer. The ultimate test will be on March 4th when With Love Meghan premieres on Netflix after it was postponed about 2 weeks ago. And yeah, I am pretty confident in my statement that, you know, you can only go through so many rebrands. And when you have been branded by the media and by sources, former employees, as not very nice, it's incredibly hard to work your way out of that brand.
You know, when I was looking at those clips earlier of Meghan with her little basket, you know, gathering whatever the fuck it was she was gathering in the garden and in the kitchen and all this. It's not even her house, by the way, where this Netflix series was filmed. I remember back in, what was it, 1980, my parents and I went to France together and we visited Versailles and we took a tour, and there is a little like hut area on the grounds of Versailles where Marie Antoinette and her ladies would dress up like shepherdesses and go into this little hut and pretend that they were shepherdesses, that they were no longer the Queen of France and her courtiers, but they were, or her ladies in waiting, but that they were, humble peasant folk. And that's exactly what Meghan reminds me of when she's walking around her garden dressed that way. I guess that this is her rebrand. She wants to kind of be like a newer, younger, hipper version of Martha Stewart. Netflix is already dealing with the bullshit over Amelia Perez. And now they're dealing with this bullshit. This is supposed to premiere next month. It's already been postponed. And the early notices have not been kind. Let's put it that way. So let's continue.
Work your way away from that reputation. And it's especially going to be hard for Meghan, who just refuses to acknowledge it. It was Newsweek magazine not too long ago that said, maybe she should acknowledge other people's feelings. It's always about her truth, but perhaps it would humanize
it isn't
her
permanent
or make
record.
her a little more digestible if she would just acknowledge that certain people feel wronged by her or her way of communicating or management. And the fact that she refuses to do that is why people have a hard time accepting her in this role that she's trying to convince us to, begging us to buy if we're twirling around in stilettos in a kitchen and, $50,000 worth of jewelry on one arm. People, if that was the woman we were initially introduced to, before she sat on Oprah Winfrey and vengefully accused someone of racism, I think it would have been easier to buy. But we have seen years of her complaining about her circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
And we've heard from behind the scenes that she's not a kind person. And it's not just Tom Bauer. It's not just Valentine Lowe.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're hearing it from The Hollywood Reporter. Now you're hearing it from Vanity Fair. Tom Quinn has reported on it. None of these people have been sued, by the way, from these two incredibly litigious individuals.
Right.
And they threatened to sue Valentine Lowe. They threatened to sue him and they didn't. So Newsweek did compile a list of some of the negative press that Harry and Meghan have received since moving to the United States. And we're going to take a look at some of the highlights here. The title of this piece is U.S. Magazines That Burst Meghan Markle and Prince Harry's Bubble.
Okay, I just wanted to pause for a second. I am one of those royal wedding nerds. I love a good royal wedding. I was lucky enough that I got a chance to write the copy for CNN even when Prince Edward and his wife, what is her name? Sophie, I guess, when they got married. And then when King Charles and Camilla got married, I also wrote that up for news coverage at CNN. I was a news writer at the time in the Washington Bureau. And who gives a shit about Prince Edward? No one cares. But I love a good royal wedding. I love the pageantry. I love all of it. And when Harry and Meghan got married, I was one of those people who got up super early, and I was parked, in front of my phone, my iPad, whatever I was watching it on. And I was so excited and I loved it. It was so fresh. It was such a different royal wedding. And there's the future King of England walking his future daughter-in-law, his soon-to-be daughter-in-law down the aisle. And I thought, wow, this is amazing. And I think that a lot of people felt the same way. Even my incredibly cynical British friends who were not monarchists, by the way, were very excited. Like, wow, here's an American. She's an actress. She's got her own life and blah, blah, blah. And this is going to be such a great thing. And everybody loved the choir and they liked the preacher that she brought. And then they had a banana cake, which was very untraditional. So basically, she got her own way for the most part for that wedding. And then when I heard her in that Oprah interview, all of it evaporated. Not only because she and Harry both lied repeatedly during that interview, and they told lies that were easily disprovable. All right. It is not a matter of opinion to say that she lied when she said that she and Harry wed secretly before the royal wedding. And the Archbishop had to come out and state publicly that there was no secret wedding. That never happened. That he never presided over a secret ceremony. Nobody presided over a secret ceremony before the official royal wedding. They married the day of the royal wedding and not a minute before. And then when she was going off about racism and blah, 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 and I thought, how racist could that family be when Meghan Markle turned her back on her own father, who was very ill at the time, and the future king of fucking England offered to walk that girl down the aisle. So I was already side-eyeing her. And then she only got worse. She only got worse. And it was infuriating to see. What a privileged, entitled brat she is. So beyond anything that she's ever accomplished. Her greatest accomplishment in life has been marrying into that family, snagging the world's most eligible bachelor at the time. So that's an accomplishment, okay? But as far as acting is concerned, she was a nobody. She wasn't even somebody on that show on Suits. And I thought, man, this entitlement and this arrogance and this ego are going to be a problem. And the British public turned against her, and now the American public is like, go fuck yourself. Okay.
What a cute little title. What a cute burst of bubble. All right, so now this is from Jack Royston, who I know a lot of you have said in the past. He is a Sussex supporter, but I think we can confidently say that there has been a shift over the last 12 to 24 months, perhaps. Maybe it's not been that long, but Jack's tone has definitely changed towards the Sussexes. You have seen him try to hold them accountable, and you have seen him call them out when he feels like they're not being honest with the public. And he says, Meghan Markle and Prince Harry's U.S. empire has been under mounting pressure in recent years after a series of high-profile articles in American magazines.
Yep.
The Duke and Duchess of Sussex have long hated the British media and framed their declining popularity in the UK as a product of tabloids poisoning the well of public opinion.
Of course.
Ain't that the truth? However, more recently, U.S. magazines have been the outlets throwing the Sussexes into crisis mode starting in 2022. Well, that was also they had a nice little 2-year vacation. Between 2020 and 2022, I also like to refer to this time as plague time. It was in the middle of the plague, where they probably felt a little bit unbothered. But yes, glowing coverage. America was absolutely thrilled. Before we knew what their version of events were, before they sat down with Oprah, it was kind of exciting to imagine Prince Harry and Meghan Markle living here. And I think best case scenario to Americans was that Meghan was homesick and Prince Harry was going to do everything he could to make her happy.
Right.
And that was kind of romantic at the time.
Yeah,
and
it was.
They had to ruin it. They had to ruin the romance. They had to ruin the mystery by sitting down with Oprah Winfrey and unleashing. And that's it should be one of their biggest regrets professionally. I hope it is, but I doubt it is, because I don't think these two know, what does my mom say? They're butt from a hole in the ground. I don't think they do. Okay. But yeah, and there are still outlets, and you know this to be true, that continue to give them positive press.
Of course.
There are the magazines, we list them every week. Sources tell people there are the magazines that are going to continuously work with them because they love the access they have to these people and they don't want to jeopardize it. And then there are people like Entertainment Tonight and Access Hollywood that there's a carrot dangled in front of them, knowing that Harry and Meghan dabble in the entertainment world. So could Entertainment Tonight get an interview with Prince Harry? Yeah. I mean, if he would have been at those Netflix upfronts that the comedian were tearing into them at, yeah. I mean, with Harry and Meghan working so much in Hollywood, they probably might do a sit down with Access Hollywood. At least that's what Access Hollywood and Entertainment Tonight are hoping for. So you see a lot of positive stories on their website and on their socials.
I told you guys, the entertainment press is incredibly corrupt. Entertainment Tonight, Access Hollywood, People, Us Weekly, publications like that, In Touch. Basically, you get celebrities who suck up to these publications and these TV shows. And what they do is they run puff pieces. They basically take a press release, reword it slightly, and publish it as an article. It's not to be taken seriously. They will not do anything to cut off access to people they're trying to suck up to. It's incredibly embarrassing.
But if you read the comments on their socials, or there's that website I've talked about a couple of times on here where you can just Google this, Google how to see YouTube dislikes. There's a website pops up. You can drop the URL in, and then it shows you how many people have viewed the video, how many likes the video has, how many dislikes the video has. And when you go look at an Entertainment Tonight story that's pro the Sussexes, the dislike count is far greater than the like count every single time. Why do they continue to talk about them in a positive way? Because they are hopeful that inevitably they'll have access to them. And that is what they want. They would love to talk to a royal. Even if it's not a working royal, their ultimate objective is access, because they feel like that would elevate them, that would elevate their show, would take their show to the next level. Because how often, unless it's Fergie, do you see members of the royal family sit down with kind of those frivolous shows?
Right.
So Newsweek goes into some of the outlets that have been less than stellar towards the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, starting with The Cut. Don't forget, it says The Cut, Meghan and Montecito. From what I understand, Meghan Markle specifically asked for this journalist. This was important to Meghan. It was one of her negotiation demands to give them this exclusive access to her. This exclusive access. She wanted this particular journalist. And boy, did it backfire. It just reminds you of Tina Brown's classic. She is absolutely, what word did she use? At getting it wrong. She's perfect at getting it wrong. I know that is not the exact quote, but it's something similar. So Jack says, Meghan and Harry were still highly popular in America in 2022. But, this also, I just want to quickly say, this came out just a few months before the Queen died. So this did start the decline, right? Because once the Queen died, there was a lot of resentment because people started to realize that the last few years of her life were miserable.
Yep.
Because Harry and Meghan were constantly throwing grenades in the royal family's direction.
Yep.
And likely knowing that she had a limited time on this earth, she just lost her husband. She was fixated on ensuring the future of the monarchy. And with that being her obsession, she has two people perpetually trying to tear it down. And I do think that a lot of people recognized that, and there was some resentment there.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I seem to recall that Harry was her favorite grandchild. And she made no secret of the fact that she favored him. And the thing that's so galling about all this is that William also lost his mother that day in Paris when a drunk individual who was not trained to drive the most famous woman in the world decided to get behind the wheel of a car. Diana and Dodi El-Fayed were in the back seat of the car, not wearing seatbelts. The paparazzi gave chase, and Diana was killed. And I remember that day very, very clearly. I was working at ABC Radio at the time, and it was Labor Day weekend. And so when I went in for my shift the next day, and I was calling in for reinforcements, the bureau chief, everybody was on vacation. It was a tiny skeleton crew. And I said to the bureau chief, listen, we need more people in here. We don't have enough people. This is a huge story. And the word around ABC was, oh, this is a one-day story. It's not a big deal. Just I'll call one person in. And then that one person went to the British Embassy and all that. But it was a massive story. And it gripped the entire world. And William also lost his mother. And guess what William didn't do? He didn't go fucking crazy. So, losing your mother under those circumstances is a nightmare. And we all remember what the boys looked like when they were walking with their father the day of her funeral. It was heartbreaking. But there does come a point where enough is fucking enough, And unfortunately, Harry fell into the grip of these wacko, Hollywood shrinks and therapists and everything else. And it's been very, very bad for him. You know, he's like in the grip of really bad California therapy culture. And people have had enough of it. They've had enough of it. He's a grown man. Come on.
So it says they were still popular in 2022, but the first sign the bubble might burst, came that August when New York Magazine's The Cut dispatched Allison P. Davis to Montecito to interview the Duchess. Was it odd to you at all that she chose New York Magazine's The Cut to be her debut magazine? Because there were also stories that Variety had to pause their cover, had to release their cover with Meghan on it after New York Magazine's The Cut.
Yeah, I remember that day too. I see that a lot of people in chat remember that day. I'll never forget it. I was extremely emotional all day at work. And then the day of the funeral, they did bring more people in, and we were doing edits, audio edits, long cuts and shorter cuts for radio. And when Elton John performed, that's when I lost it. That was the moment, because I adored her. I admired her so much. And it was a lot. It was a lot. What a horrible, tragic, senseless end to such an amazing woman's life. It was horrendous. And again, I don't want anybody to get the idea that I think that, you know, Harry, it's enough already, move on. I lost my mother 8 years ago, and there's not a day that goes by that I don't think about her. And I miss her every single day. And every day I wish she was still alive so that I would be able to talk to her about anything, really, about this. She and I would love to have a conversation about this mess. You know, she was a bit of a gossip, and she enjoyed talking about the royals. And so there's no time limit on mourning. That's not my point. My point is the way that he has carried himself, and the way that he's now using all this therapy speak. It's just rubbing people the wrong way. That's all. That's all I meant to say. And it's bothering people.
Cut, because The Cut had some sort of deal, and that, you know, hold on, Variety, you have to hold off because The Cut gets this first. I would have started on the West Coast. They live in the West Coast. They're trying to impress the West Coast. They just, at the time, had just signed deals with Spotify and Netflix. They needed love from the West Coast. It was odd to me that they chose New York Magazine, but seeing how much they kind of obsess over.
Oof, no name. You just brought back a memory when the Earl gave his eulogy. And that line about Diana the Huntress. Yeah. That was heartbreaking. It was so emotional. It was so beautifully written, and it was so beautifully delivered. Absolutely.
Over this global influence brand. I do understand why they went to New York Magazine, because they want to look worldwide. They want to look international. They want to look national. They want to look bigger than they've become, quite frankly. I think that they've cheapened their brand immensely over the last few years. But I imagine that she went to New York Magazine because they were trying to look like this global brand, that they're always using the word global in their communication. I know you remember some of these. They did not even include the funniest quotes from this article, okay? In the Newsweek article, Nelson Mandela, palm trees holding hands, those aren't even included in this article. He says, Jack says, the result was a far cry from the brass shit pieces in UK newspapers like The Sun and the Daily Mail. But there was a strong sense Davis had already chosen not to drink the Kool-Aid. Now she goes into the tiny bachelor producer in her brain. That is one of the quotes that Jack includes in this as an example of the Cuts not buying it. The guttural noises, remember that she's just moaning, is another one of the quotes that Jack includes. At this stage post-royal, there is no need for her to hold back. She's flinging open the proverbial doors to her life. As any millennial woman whose feminism was forged in the girl boss era would understand, she has taken a hardship and turned it into content. I think she's making fun of her there. But I also would stress it's not good content. It's almost like messy monetization.
Right.
Because everything they do, it seems like they do in a hurry. or they do, I shouldn't say a hurry because it takes, look, Limonada was announced a year ago, okay? But they do it in a rush, I should say. Like, I don't think that the Oprah Winfrey interview was well thought out, although we do know that they had talked about sitting down with Oprah before they got married. So the thought was there, but I don't think that they really thought out the consequences of the Oprah Winfrey interview. And I say that because they backpedaled in the Netflix series. Meghan talks about how she was disappointed that the headline from the Oprah Winfrey interview was the royal racist, allegedly. She wanted it to be her mental health. And then when Tom Bradby asks Prince Harry about royal racism, Prince Harry completely denies it, says they never said that the media created that narrative.
Another lie. Another lie. They were hardly subtle about it, were they, in that Oprah interview? And one of the other things that was hilarious, something that tickled everyone, was that Meghan decided that she was going to invite all these A-list celebrities to their wedding, and she had never met any of these people. So Oprah, she had never met Oprah. The Clooneys, apparently George Clooney was sitting next to somebody, and they asked, "Oh, how do you know the bride or whoever invited you?" He's like, "I've never met these people." You know, he had no idea. The celebrities that were there who did know, one of them were the Beckhams. And, you know, they've fallen out with the Beckhams because Meghan went on a tear against Victoria Beckham and blamed Victoria for leaking information about her to the press. She had absolutely no proof of this. And David Beckham had been friends with Harry and William for years. I mean, like, they were friends. And so Meghan turned on Victoria for no reason, and that was a real problem. And so gradually, and she didn't like any of Harry's friends, and so then Harry became isolated, and that was a whole other thing, and it was a whole problem. And so now there they are sitting in Montecito, and they're getting a lot of bad press.
Now, we all know that is a complete and utter lie. There was racism discussed in the Oprah Winfrey interview, and you cannot put the toothpaste back in the tube after such an extreme and damaging claim. So that's part of the reason why I think that they just do and don't fully process what the repercussions might be. Messy money.
So, Fernette, to answer your question, the reason that people are fed up with them, but particularly with her, is because she has a history going back to the time that she was in the UK, where she has been horribly abusive to staff. She can't take accountability or responsibility for anything. And then when she's criticized, she blames racism for all of it. She made a lot of allegations and accusations against the royal family that were completely without evidence. She had nothing to back it up. And then they tried to backpedal and say, "Oh, no, that's not really what we said," when that is, in fact, exactly what they said. They lied all the way through that Oprah interview, and apparently after the interview was over and Oprah realized how much she had been lied to, she was absolutely livid, and she cut them both off. So their projects haven't been doing well. Their first Netflix series did quite well because there was a sort of rubbernecking aspect to it where people were like, "Oh, gee, you know, they're giving interviews, and now we get a peek into their lives and blah blah blah." And yeah, it did very, very well, but they didn't have the Spotify deal fell apart because her podcast was terrible. Apparently, she's on the outs with Serena Williams, who was a personal friend of many, many years of Meghan's. And she is having a real problem hanging on to friends because of her horrendous attitude. Nobody is suggesting that their marriage is troubled or that it's on the rocks or anything. It's just that she plays the race card every single time she is caught behaving badly or failing at a project. And it's just enough already.
Monetization is how I would categorize whatever this content creation Meghan Markle is doing. Will she improve by March 4th? We're going to have to wait and see. Still on the cut, another passage read, Meghan, silence no more, looks around, making sure nobody, who would be, is listening in. Then the top secret drop. I'm getting back on Instagram. She says, her eyes, devilish. gosh, she could not wait. She could not wait to get back on Instagram. She's been chomping at the bit. It says, this could have been a troll delivering a nothing with such gravitas, feels as if Meghan, who has been so trolled by the media, is serving it back just a little. But as I quickly realize, it is actually news. The mismatch between the interviewer and interviewee, this is Jack, is an interesting one because it speaks to a symptom of Meghan and Harry's wider malaise. At times, they have pushed themselves out of the spaces that normally fawn over the royals, but without necessarily working out how to appeal to other audiences. So they do go to The Cut, which has been incredibly critical of Prince William and Catherine, the Princess of Wales, in the past. And that was one of our points when we saw that Meghan gave them access to her. We were like, they've been writing this very vulgar content about Prince William. Why would she give access to them? And perhaps that is why Harry and Meghan choose some of these publications. Oh, well, they seem a little bit critical of the royal family, so maybe they'll be on our side.
The other reason that people are so angry is because they made Prince Philip and Queen Elizabeth's last few years on Earth a living hell. Queen Elizabeth was reportedly extremely upset that the brothers had fallen out. And she was very upset that Harry and Meghan continue to take constant swipes at the royal family. She was upset at how litigious Prince William and Prince Harry or Harry and Meghan had become. It was very, very embarrassing to the royal family. And towards the end of her life, Queen Elizabeth had lost her husband. Say what you want to about Prince Philip. There were a lot of things about him that people didn't like, and I get that. But ultimately, her goal was keeping the monarchy going and keeping the monarchy intact. And this was a woman who had lived her entire life in the service of the monarchy and her country. And the fact that Harry and Meghan were being so incredibly selfish and entitled was something that really hurt her, again, because Harry was her favorite grandchild, and she made no secret of it. And so the fact that they had left and then that she didn't get to see them, and it was a whole thing, and it was just a mess. And the distance that developed between Harry and his father, which was also, played out very, very publicly, which was deeply hurtful to her. So, the British may feel a certain type of way about the monarchy. They may think that maybe the monarchy is outdated, or they don't like the lavish lifestyle that the royals live and all that. But there was a sort of universal affection for Queen Elizabeth, and this idea that her grandson was mistreating her that way didn't go over well.
But I don't think they always are. I think that they need to do better due diligence when it comes to who they work with. I think Meghan works with people that she thinks not only will side with her, but also will give her a little bit of credibility. But anybody that truly would give Meghan Markle credibility by working with her is going to see right through her, and they're not going to pander. Back to our Newsweek article, the revelation she was returning to Instagram was indeed a big story for precisely the tabloids. Meghan and Harry have been trying to avoid, but she perhaps should have known The Cut would expect something of greater substance from a woman who once said she reads The Economist. Okay, now I have spent 18 minutes talking about one section of this article. So for the rest of the article, I will try to blow through it. I'm so sorry. Just looked at the clock and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm only at the top of the article. So Variety. I will say backstory. The title of this Variety piece is It's Well Past Time for Harry and Meghan 2.0. This was written around the time that Harry and Meghan released their docuseries reality show on Netflix. And this is a negative review of that show that was featured in Variety. This is a huge deal that Variety, a trade publication, would give them a negative review of their show because not long before their show was released, shortly after Queen Elizabeth's death, Meghan was featured on the cover of Variety. What was it too? Like Women on the Rise? I don't even remember what the concept was, but they had just given her this ooey gooey gushy cover where she got to dress up and have, she had videographers there capturing her in slow-mo, taking photos, and the wind blowing her skirts everywhere. She was living for it. So it was kind of a punch to the gut that Variety would be critical of them. And I'm just going to skim through this. Months later, Meghan and Harry released their first Netflix project, a biopic reality show, charting their messy exit from the palace.
Did you guys know, by the way, that Prince Harry, as part of that huge Netflix deal, and I I've been seeing reports that the $100 million figure that was thrown around of the Netflix deal was hugely exaggerated, but that he produced a series on polo. Did you guys know that? Have you heard a single person talking about his series about polo? Because some of the more uncomplimentary stories, including the one in Vanity Fair, said that he's a man of very few interests, and really his only interest in life is polo. Oh, really, Deborah? Because I didn't even know that it existed, and apparently it was a giant flop. And I was just glancing at a review in The Guardian that said it was unintentionally hilarious, which is not good. But it was dead in the water. No publicity, no chatter, no buzz, no nothing. Nobody gave a fuck. It came and went. It bombed, and that's it. And so now this Martha Stewart series that she's got in the hopper that debuts next month, I don't know how many more bites at the apple they're going to get, but they do have to fulfill their contractual obligations with Netflix. Some of the ideas that Harry proposed were preposterous. And I heard I watched some videos where people had really good suggestions of things that he could do, of ways that he could use his fame and his access and all the people that he's met throughout the course of his life. And he is, he's charming. I mean, he's got that whatever. And people who have met him say that he's actually a very, very nice guy and quite personable. And he could harness that in some way. But apparently the polo idea was terrible and no one gave a shit.
Soared to the top of the Netflix ranking globally. Okay, it's called Morbid Curiosity. But again, there was a canary in the mine shaft moment when Variety gave it a scathing interview. Now, this is Andrew Wallenstein, and he's talking about, given that they've beaten this horse to death, perhaps this one-trick pony is due for the glue factory. He is judging Harry and Meghan by the fact that they are just unloading everything. Between Spare hadn't come out yet, I don't believe. We hadn't even known about the Todger cream yet. My God. But he's saying in this Netflix series, in the Oprah Winfrey interview, they've given it all away. Boy, was he wrong. Thanks to Spare. But he says, given that they've beaten this dead horse, perhaps this one-trick pony is due for the glue factory. Of course, Harry and Meghan would have you believe they're all about so much more than their own story. The brand they believe they are building through their media company, Archwell Productions, is meant to be about all of the social causes and charities they support.
Like what?
Their game plan has always been, come for the sob story, stay for the high-minded uplift.
Okay.
But that's a shaky strategy for keeping an audience around that probably doesn't care about anything either of them has to say that isn't royal gossip.
That's absolutely
Savage.
true. That's
And
true, though.
Newsweek is included in this Newsweek article. The title is "The More Prince Harry and Meghan Markle Say, the Less Americans Like Them." And they go into how they partnered with Redfield and Wilton to put together some polling. And really, they've seen that decline in Harry and Meghan's popularity since 2022, over the last few years. It says that it looks like they started to work with them in December of 2022. And they go into some of those numbers, and they believe that the decline was as significant as it was because of Spare and the Elizabeth Arden cream and talking to a trash can while you're, high as a kite. The Hollywood Reporter, why Hollywood keeps quitting on Harry and Meghan. Okay, so you and I have gone over this 1,000 times before, but what they have excluded, because why Hollywood keeps quitting on Harry and Meghan was at the end of last year. But what they've excluded is when the Hollywood Reporter named Harry and Meghan one of the biggest losers of 2023. So the Hollywood Reporter has been on it for a while, right? It says in September of 2024, one of Meghan's biggest scandals went stateside with a piece in the Hollywood Reporter suggesting the couple had a high churn rate because staff thought Meghan was a dictator in heels. One of the best lines ever.
And see, this is the thing. These stories about Meghan's abusive behavior towards staff date back all the way to when she was still in London. She made this preposterous claim that nobody had prepared her for what she was about to face. Nobody prepared her for royal life. That was completely false. The family found an amazing guy who was assigned to her to kind of, show her the ropes. And she wouldn't listen to him. And she was horribly abusive to staff. And there were stories that came out about her horrific conduct, although back then they were still protected by the formidable PR machine of the palace. And the palace has been very, very good at tamping down unflattering stories about the royal family. They've been very good at it. They're very good at limiting access. They're very good at bullying journalists into silence and all of that shit, right? However, when they came to the United States, no such protection exists. There is no crisis management firm. There is no PR person that can completely eradicate all these terrible stories about what a monster she is. And there is no NDA in the world that can guarantee that former employees won't go public and speak about what they experienced, even if it's through a third party. And the other thing is that when she was in the UK, she had a number of friends who used to work as conduits between herself and the press. And Meghan was quite a prolific leaker. She was very good at getting unflattering stories about Catherine and William out into the media mainstream or bloodstream without leaving her fingerprints on it, even though everybody knew that she was definitely responsible. All right. But she's fallen out with all of those friends now. So all of these terrible stories about her and how abusive she is to staff and all that. I mean, again, this is how she acted in the UK. And she can't make the excuse now that, oh, I was just overwhelmed because of the pressures of royal life and nobody helped me and nobody told me about protocol and it's all bullshit. This is just who she is. This is her nature.
If you get that tattoo on your body, will you please send me a picture? Dictator in heels. I love it. Why'd they all leave? The article read. What explains the churn? Everyone's terrified of Meghan. We know this. I won't go into all of this with you, but my God, the Hollywood Reporter, what a frenzy that was after that article came out. Now, here they go into the Vanity Fair piece inside Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's big business ambitions 5 years after their royal exit. It says most recently, Vanity Fair thrashed out a series of similar claims from Sussex insiders who compared Meghan to a mean girl teenager. They talk about Spotify. Two sources say a colleague with ties to archetypes took a leave of absence after working on 3 episodes, then left Gimlet altogether. Several others described taking extended breaks from work to escape scrutiny. Oh gosh, we've all been there. When you're just like, I'm calling in sick. I need a mental health day. I'm going to say it's diarrhea, but I need a mental health day. They're exiting their job or undergoing long-term therapy after working with Meghan. The long-term therapy claim was pretty intense. I mean, that is, if the divorce rumor had not been included in the Vanity Fair piece, the therapy storyline would have been the storyline stealing all of the headlines.
Absolutely.
Let me know if you agree or disagree with me in the comments. One staff member described talking behind your back and gnawing at your sense of self. We've all had bosses like that. I think that's why it's so hard to read.
Yep.
And I think that's why it's so believable, because we've had those mean bosses.
Yep.
They tear at you, they tear you down, but they've given you enough love in the past that you work incredibly hard to get back in their good graces because you liked that feeling and you don't like the feeling of being on the outs. And it takes you a while before you go, it's not worth it. And I think that a lot of us really felt these articles in our core because we've worked with people like this before.
Exactly. I have. I know I have.
Make it incredibly difficult for Meghan and Harry and their team of supporters to suggest the bullying allegations from her time at Kensington Palace were a fiction.
There you go.
Newsweek. What a line. Let's see, what else does it say here? My father, my brother, Kate, and all the rest of the family, they were really welcoming, Harry told Oprah, but it really changed after the Australia tour, after our South Pacific tour. And that is a major problem because of the nature of the narrative they put forward and why they left the monarchy. It was also the first time that the family got to see how incredible she is at the job. The narrative that the relationship between the monarchy and the Sussexes deteriorated because of jealousy is somewhat undermined. However, by the revelation, Meghan was accused of bullying, which serves as a possible alternative explanation for the rift that formed. I mean, yes, I have completely forgotten about Harry and Meghan claiming that it was all about jealousy because it was so ridiculous. That is such a ridiculous claim. I know that there are other there are other articles out there, like these articles. The Wall Street Journal was critical of Harry and Meghan after the Spotify deal went south. Bloomberg poking fun at them over some of the concepts that they revealed in their article, some of the ideas that Prince Harry had presented to Spotify about hanging out with the Pope and Trump.
Right.
I mean,
And
good luck.
Putin.
So there have been other outlets. The Wrap was one of the first outlets too that I saw really from in the States talk about Harry and Meghan's turnover. Puck, that incredible new newsletter from one of the former employees at the Hollywood Reporter, talking last year about how Harry and Meghan's deal with Netflix was one of the worst deals in Hollywood history. So there's been more criticism than the publications listed in the Newsweek article, but it did give us a starting point and a jump off point. Let me know if we missed anything in the comments. And do you think that Harry and Meghan's Hollywood dreams are dead? Because some of you disagree when I say I don't think it's on a good path. I don't think it's on the path they want it to be on. Let me know in the comments below. If you watched this video to the end, comment with the word Queen or the Queen emoji so I can see you. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share this video with a friend. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Kinsey Schofield.
See, I had a feeling that things were going to go very badly when Harry and Meghan attended the Lion King premiere in London. And I think it was in London. I think that they were still there. And I think that Meghan was pregnant at the time. And Harry buttonholed Bob Iger on the red carpet. And he was trying to make a case for hiring Meghan to do some acting or some voice work with Disney. And it didn't really pan out, did it? I think that she did some narration on a documentary about elephants or something. But even Harry could not convince Bob Iger to give Meghan a chance. And that's when I started to think, do they really have, is it really going to be possible for them to make it in Hollywood? I don't know about that. But also, I mean, keep in mind that what Hollywood values above all else is success, money, tuchuses in seats, eyeballs tuning in to watch something that has been produced and generating an income. And unfortunately, after that Netflix miniseries that they did, that docu-series that they did, their other projects have flopped. And so I'm sorry, but when you're a monster of a boss, and you're not producing something that's a hit, like James Cameron can be horrible to his actresses, right? Or his actors. A big film director can be horrible and abusive to his team as long as he is producing movies that are hits. Okay? People get away with it in Hollywood every single day. Same thing with music producers, performers, whatever. But the minute that your record sales drop or you produce a string of flops, that's it for you. You're done. And all of a sudden, all that bullying and harassment and driving people into therapy and, you know, the turnover of the staff, then it becomes an issue. But they never achieve that level of success to enable her to justify her horrible behavior of staff. So anyway, all right, you guys. I appreciate you guys so much. And thanks for this little gossip sesh. I thought it was fun. And I will see you guys later. Welcome to all the new members. Thank you again, No Name, for being so kind as to buy all those memberships. Thank you. I appreciate you. And I will see you guys the next time. See you later, guys.